Namo tase bhagavatu arahatu samha sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavatu arahatu samha sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavatu arahatu samha sambuddhase. Kayena vacha chittena pamadhena maya katang acchayang kamami bhante bhuri panye tathagate. Kayena vacha chittena pamadhena maya katang acchayang kamami dhamme sandittika akalika. Kaine vacha chittene pamadhine maya katang acchayang kamami sangha supatipanne anuttere. Let us sit for meditation, coming into the present moment, guiding your mind into letting go of the past and the future as you gently come to be aware of the present. Observing the present sensation as you gently guide your focus inward, observing the mind and body present here, observing observing the gross and subtle sensation as you come more into the present, the grossness of the mind and body with every arising and passing comes to be lighter and lighter. The mind alert, upon the present, inspired by the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, gently coming to be aware, to observe the breath at the tip of the nostril, or by observing the rise and fall of the abdomen. Observe the in-breath and out-breath. The in-breath, the out-breath. Letting go of all else. Letting go of all other conditioned Dhamma. And being within this moment. This very moment. Not a second in the future or the past. Letting go of all views. Letting go of all other Dhammas. Letting go of the analytical mind. And simply being present with the breath. Letting go of the wanting for any other Dhamma. Letting go of need for any other external stimuli. And being present with the breath wholeheartedly. Observing the rise and fall of the breath without expectation, without thinking that we may know what the next moment may entail. And simply just being in the present with sati upon the breath, noting in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. As you let go of needs and wants, craving for more, craving for less, craving for the same. Note how the mind and body becomes lighter and lighter. With the three-rooted mind, Trihetuka Kusala, arising, the mind and body through cause and effect, leading to calm and tranquil Chitta Jarupa, making the body light, relax, the bodily function are calm and relaxed. Just so the breath, the gross breath, when the restlessness wards away, The breath is clear to the mind, the calm mind, the mind present with disattachment, renunciation, nekama, a mind with loving kindness, metta, adosa, non-harm towards each object, towards each breath. A mind with wisdom, directly knowing the in-breath as in-breath, out-breath as out-breath. Observe the long in-breath, the long out-breath, a long in-breath, a long out-breath. Gently, gently, moment to moment, as the three-rooted wholesome mind becomes stronger. The mind becomes stable and able to be with one object without expectation or craving, to simply be with one object, having understood that in the present there is always just one Dhamma that is cognized. So what need for any other Dhamma? Craving exacerbates suffering, exacerbate further impermanence. Realizing this truth, we exist with disattachment, with sati established, spirited by the three-rooted mind. Note the pristine quality of peace. Once we learn to let go deeply, whilst being with the breath, and as the mind abides with calmness and tranquility in observing the breath, slowly introduce the watching, the learning, the seeing of impermanence, the gross breath, the once gross breath, now calm, impermanent, as the breath arises, it ceases, impermanent, being conditioned. Observe how each breath, rising and ceasing, once the meditator looks upon the breath closely, observing from beginning to end the maneuver of the breath, how the breath arises and ceases. Each breath, each subtle breath, each gross breath is different from one another. The reason for this is just not the breath, it is both the mind and the body. The mind that beholds the breath, two changes. The breath that arises, two ceases. Moment to moment, within the moment, there is impermanent change, flux. Thus, by observing the breath closely, one becomes more and more vigilant, aware, slowly realizing the nature of all Dhamma, of all conditioned reality. The mind and body, arising, ceasing, and all objects experienced by the mind and body, internal and external, conditioned, impermanent, inspiring us to observe the breath with sati, yet with deeper disattachment, nekkhamma, renouncing any self that one may see within the breath, not cognizing the breath as a part of you, not cognizing you within the breath. See this experience as transitory, arising, ceasing nature. Nothing more interesting, no less interesting. Letting go of judgment and views as one becomes stronger within the present, away from all stories, concoctions of the mind, and being with the natural moment, not claiming any self in any path, but simply being. Allow yourself to let go deeper and deeper onto the lap of Dhamma. We sit with the Dhamma in this moment. Every arising and ceasing, seeing the impermanent, see that everything is an object taken by the sense door or the mind. Moment to moment, as you observe the breath through which we see the reality of all Dhamma. Focused guiding one's attention to observe the whole body of the breath. Letting go all else. Be with the breath. Gently, gently. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Observe as the breath grows subtler and subtler. The breath may become very soft. It is arising and ceasing as the mind and the body adheres with the present. Gently continue to be with the breath, the subtle breath. And as you observe closely, the breath may become so subtle, gently as the breath is experienced by the body base, Kaya Dwara, experiencing the breath through Patavi Dhatu, Tejo Dhatu, and Vayu Dhatu. This is Pottabha Dhatu, touch, the element of touch. With every impingement, contact, arises feeling, Vedana. Gently as we observe the breath, the air element, experienced through touch. Let us even more closely and deeply to experience the sensation, Vedana, of the breath. Being with the moment, with letting go. See pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling. And where both pleasant and unpleasant may not be there, this is upekkha feeling. Sukha, dukkha, upekkha, vedana. Reviewing the mind, balancing the indriya, to now bring the mind to be aware of the sensation, arising, ceasing. Note the sensations for what they are. Sukha, dukkha, upekkha. Observe, observe, observe. Gently finding balance, observing the Vedana without seeing self or as Vedana holding self, Vedana within a self. Allow Vedana to just be Vedana, arising and ceasing, condition, arising, ceasing, gently, gently, inspired by the Buddha, Dhamma, and the resilient Sangha. Let us be resilient in this moment, embracing the triple gem fully through opening one's heart towards the Dhammas that are really unfolding. Reality as it truly is. The thoughts of the mind subdued as we become more and more aware of the true nature that is. Gently, 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 as you observe the Vedana, noting Sukha, Dukkha, Upekkha, it is towards this Vedana that craving arises. As the mind cognizes a object, Vedana is the manner in which the mind feels the object. As you observe the nature of impermanence within this Vedana, the Vedana arises and ceases. With the ceasing of Vedana, ceases the object of clinging. When the mind is established in the practice, the mind observes Vedana, knowing its true nature, knowing for oneself. Observes Vedana with upekkha, with equanimity towards all Vedana. Guiding the mind to cultivating a deeper, a more resilient state of awareness, an awareness that cannot be disrupted by the mere rising of a Vedana. As this mind sees, observe, the nature of Vedana, the frailty of Vedana, the conditioned nature of this Vedana. Vedana as cause and effect. We realize we cling on to a conditioned object, a conditioned Dhamma. in letting go of our attachment to Vedana. The mind experiences a more profound state of blissful abiding. Observe, let go, knowing and seeing deeply the nature of this moment and all Dhamma that arises within this moment. As one sees reality for what it is, this seeing itself is the destruction of all taints. Purify one's mind moment to moment, allowing this seeing to arise with the powerful support of a pure mind established with nekkhamma, alobha, adosa, amoha. When the mind is illuminated by the light of wisdom, the hindrances cannot arise. The hindrances have no condition to arise. When the mind observes with equanimity the arising and passing of materiality, the breath, the arising and ceasing of sensation, one would be able to observe the arising and ceasing of sanya, perception, how perception arises in perceiving the breath, the sensation, moment to moment, with every mind, perception arises, perception ceases. Seeing the arising and ceasing of perception, one may be able to also see the arising and ceasing of all sankhara, moment to moment, the sankharas that arise, the formation, the variety of mental factors supporting the consciousness, making the moment what it is, with all its grooves and edges. These sankhara arises and ceases, seeing the arising and ceasing of sankhara. One may be able to see the arising and ceasing of vijnana, the consciousness conditioned by not one but many factors, arises and ceases. The consciousness is transitory in nature, changes. The calm mind may become restless. The restless mind becomes calm. But the yogi knows with the arising of restlessness, there is ceasing of restlessness. When one is aware, sati is established. The mind that arises is now conditioned by sati, cause and effect. All five aggregates exist, arise and see, conditioned by karma, by other energy apart from karma, by chitta, by utu, by ahara, and conditioned by mind, mental factor, Vedana, Sanya, all in turn, having been a fruit of another condition, now stands to condition other Dhamma, seeing this nature, seeing the nature of the aggregate as they are, the mind and the body both arise and see. With the ceasing of the mind, ceases all object. Observe with letting go and equanimity towards all Dhamma, towards the five aggregates, being with the five aggregates, clinging to the five aggregates, is to ensure suffering for oneself. With the ceasing of craving towards the five aggregates lies the undying peace, lies a cessation of all dukkha, to cling on to a Dhamma that is conditioned, is to invite oneself to experience the suffering associated with the subsequent ceasing of the object, of the aggregate. When one clings to youthfulness, one is distraught by old age. When one clings to beauty, one would subsequently come to experience the suffering associated with the loss of the beauty. When one clings to peace, one would experience the suffering associated with the subsequent loss of peace. When one clings to a personality, a characteristic of this body or mind, one duly comes to experience the suffering associated with the loss, with change of that state. The yogi is seeing the nature, abides with no craving towards the aggregate. Letting go, letting go, letting go. Gently guiding one's attention to now take a moment that being conditioned, all Dhamma experience constant ripple of other conditioning factors. Gently, gently, with a mind of metta, radiating vibrations of loving kindness towards all aggregate, internal and external, enduring, impermanent suffering, moment to moment, all being, all life, from the highest planes of the Suddha Vasa to the lowest planes of Apaya, humans, animals, seen and unseen life, all life endured the plight of conditioning, all life endured the suffering associated with change, all life exists with a flux, a constant ripple of causes and effects. The suffering that one might feel in one's own life may be suffering that is experienced in so many beings. Even greater suffering is experienced by a greater amount of beings. This world exists with potential for great suffering and great pleasure and happiness. It is in cultivating the deepest of upekkha towards all sankhara that one reaches to the footstep, the doorstep of Nibbana. Gently, with deep gratitude towards the practice, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, with deep gratitude for the conditions that have aligned to bring us to this practice of the present, the practice of the Satipatthana, Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, everyone. You do have the opportunity to ask questions. However, before we do come into questions, I would like to speak a little bit more about awareness over the five aggregates. Further to, of course, our guided meditation, which focused upon the awareness of the five aggregates. In observing the breath, one can easily understand that this is the experience of the first aggregate, which is materiality. In observing the nature of materiality, which is through the experience of the breath felt at the body base, is conditioned by all phenomena that could condition the air element, the fire element, the earth element, which forms the Pottabha Dhatu, or the element of Pottabha, which is touch. So any touch that is experienced, when it is referred to as Pottabha, which means touch, Dhatu, element, it refers to the attributes of three particular elements: earth, fire, and wind, which allow for the experiencing of a touch. When the mind is able to see the nature of this breath, or let us say even a Vedana, one sees, or one would come to see, that this nature of the breath or the Vedana is the same nature that exists internally and externally. Internally and externally. Cultivating a sense of upekha towards this nature conditioned, which we, the first aggregate, which is rupa. In observing this rupa, we realize that the rupa goes through flux, change, constant change. However, it is only when the mind clings to the rupa that this change becomes suffering, which arises in the mind. We know the suffering associated with change is referred to as viparinama dukkha. Viparinama dukkha. The mind, in seeing the reality within this particular aggregate, which is the internal group of aggregates, the mind also learns that just like this internal aggregate which is present, there are also external aggregates within other humans, within other beings, within animals, pretas, all beings. In different ways, those aggregates would exist, especially the mental aggregates. The physical aggregate differs upon the place or positions or to whom one is born to, isn't it? So all of those are then conditions that condition the aggregate. In observing the breath as the first rupa aggregate, one comes to then, through the arising of breath, arising of breath at the moment of contact, contact leads to the arising of a Vedana. When any mind adheres to a particular object, just like the friction between two objects when they come to touch, how the mind rubs against the object is what we refer to as feeling. This is feeling. So any object would rub against the mind in a certain way. In our conventional way of thought, we have learned to realize what is a pleasurable feeling, what is a dukkha feeling, what is a upekha feeling to a certain extent. But this experience that we have in the samadhi world, in our daily abidings, and the experience that we have with sukha, dukkha, upekha in the meditative sense, would be worlds apart. Why? Because when we refer to something which is pleasant, the pleasantness that one feels in a meditative sense is different to the pleasantness associated by karma, for example. Hmm? The way or the feel of karma, or how a karma object would be experienced, is very different to a way a wholesome object of meditation would be experienced. The reason for this is a karma object exists when there is a karma mind. A wholesome object exists when there is a wholesome mind. When it comes to a wholesome mind, the wholesome mind has then three attributes, as we know, which is alobha, non-greed, adosa, non-hatred, and amoha, which is wisdom. Alobha is also given the meaning of renunciation, where the mind is able to be with the object without any, if I may say, stickiness between the object and the mind. There is no sense of attaching or clinging for that arises for the object because the mind exists at that moment with a sense of wisdom. Now, wisdom, as we have come across in sutras such as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, and also in parts of the Satipatthana Sutra, we know that this attribute of wisdom is also spoken of as the light of wisdom. Light of wisdom. Hmm? This light of wisdom that shines bright during the moment of Vipassana only shines when the mind is able to be or behold an object with a balanced, three-rooted mind. The three roots are those three roots that I mentioned just before. When that is such, the mind is able to now proceed to see deeper aspects of the aggregates. The most gross out of the aggregates we know is the rupa. It's the heaviest, isn't it? And then after the rupa, we have this Vedana, because when you see the rupa, when you see the arising of rupa, you're essentially directing your mind towards the moment of contact, where the rupa first impinges and arises within the scope of mind, isn't it? Hmm? Then when there is contact, or because of contact there is arising, this arising, just like two dhammas coming to have friction with one another, it creates a Vedana, which is then grows in comparison to other aggregates such as, let us say, Sanya. Now, Sanya is far more subtler in comparison to Vedana. In comparison to Vedana. But Vedana, when we train through the Vedana in the same way that we have adhered with the breath, noting the arising of the Vedana, noting the ceasing of the Vedana, noting, but before the arising and ceasing of Vedana, if you remember the Upanisa Sutra, which we have done, but it's also a sutra that is quite popular. So you might have come across a sutra before. The Upanisa Sutra talks about how first, before observing the arising and ceasing of a particular aggregate, you must first know the aggregate. You should first note, be able to recognize what the aggregate is. Now, this is connected to discernment, wisdom. For example, you can ask questions anytime. Let me see whether, okay, you should be able to unmute yourself now if you want to ask questions. When there is a rising of the breath, the physicality, as the breath arises within the body base, where the body base is where the impingement occurs, we note this impingement initially as the air element. When we become far more proficient and fluent in being able to be with this breath, we are then able to see that this breath, this impingement of the breath arises within the body base. Hence, when there is impingement upon the body base, through that same body base, you should be able to see Vedana. So every breath would have a Vedana. Now, in knowing this part of Dhamma, what happens? In knowing this part of Dhamma, and maybe in bits, in parts, recollecting on your own time, you come to understand or accept this Dhamma in part, not fully, but in part. And in your meditation, because this Dhamma is now there, one would not assume, one would not assume that there is no Vedana. That there is no Vedana. Every moment that the mind arises, there would be a particular Vedana that arises. This Vedana, we observe the arising of, the passing of. And when it passes, what happens? If there was craving, the Vedana takes longer to cease. If there is no craving, the Vedana ceases promptly upon arising. Maybe this is something that you've noted yourself. When there is craving, there is a sense of prolongation of that breath, of that object. When there is no craving, there is no prolonging of that Dhamma. This is a good way for the meditator to come to realize for oneself moments where there is craving and moments where there is no craving, even in an initial sense. When one realizes, oh, there might be craving, this is an opportunity for the meditator with now this newfound wisdom. It is, isn't it? It is wisdom. With this newfound wisdom through experience, through knowing and seeing, now the wisdom increased a little bit, isn't it? If we might say so. Then with this increase of prajna, wisdom, the other faculties are balanced accordingly to facilitate this wisdom in a manner where the effort Now, because wisdom is present, the attribute of effort, is able to be with the object, strong, focused, however, not so exertive. Why? Because of the light of wisdom, which shines brighter. The sati, because the exertion has come into a sense of balance, or we could also say tatra majjatata, with the with the wisdom that has now arisen in the vipassana, sati, shraddha, virya, sati, samadhi, prajna, towards with that prajna readjusts to ensure the ability of the mind to be with this subtle object, subtle type of object. Now, the subtlety of mind is able to see Vedana, and with its further growth or cultivation, it would be able to see that with every Vedana, the mind that cognizes this Vedana. Do you understand? With every Vedana, the mind that cognizes this Vedana, the mind that takes this Vedana, and when this Vedana is present in the way that it is present, pleasant, unpleasant, upekha, the way the mind abides with this Vedana is different. Why? Because that complex or that aggregate, the conditions within that aggregate, conditioning that aggregate is different. Hence, the Vedana, you see the Vedana, the rising and ceasing of the Vedana. When the Vedana, the mind that beholds the Vedana, and through which you see now the Sanya that goes into that Vedana. Now, initially, when you think about Sanya, you might see that when we first sit down for our meditation, and if I may say, or any other teacher would say, okay, we are practicing Anapanasati today, we are practicing Vedananupassana today, Kaya-anupassana today, what happens? The Sanya aligns itself according to those words that have been now heard, isn't it? The sanya adjusting itself now when you say anapanasati, and if within anapanasati, let us say we prematurely bring up Vedana, you might wonder, this is not anapanasati. Huh? Now see that sanya that arises there. But now this sanya is difficult to track because you might also see sanya as consciousness, the mind, which is not so. Sanya is only one component of the mind. The mind has 52 other potential chaitasikas that can be components conditioning the mind, isn't it? Sanya is just but one component. This sanya, all it does, it links the object to something that has been experienced before. Hmm? It links the object to something that has been experienced before, perception. When the yogi trains the mind to be within the present, to behold now, let us say, this quality of sanya in the mind, the yogi is able to see that the way every Vedana is perceived is different. And the way that the mind exists is different. Through which we clearly establish the parameters of what sanya is and how sanya connects. This is a good time for the meditator to re-evaluate one's practice at that moment. Where all sanya, where we establish or reaffirm that all sanya that arises towards whatever object that is cognized connects to the path. Hmm? So, all understanding that is derived here in this moment, may it further fuel this Dhamma unfolding, the observation, the path to flourish towards what a goal must also be there, Nibbana, possibly. When that is so, the sanya that arises does not connect, being in the present, does not connect to the past, but it connects, the sanya connects what is experienced. Let us say it's anapanasati, just as we did today. It connects it to the reality of what is, the nature of what is, the three characteristics. When this is so, now every sanya that arises can be seen in a manner where the sanya abides peacefully. The sanya is clear. When the sanya is tainted, this is seen. When the sanya is pure, this is seen. In such a manner, this sanya too has a arising and ceasing. This sanya too is transitory. Viparinama dukkha rises within or in the rising of this sanya, there is also viparinama dukkha, the suffering associated with change. In all moments, then, now the mind that is subtle enough to see sanya using, now it has seen two mental components, Vedana and Sanya. Two mental components, Vedana and Sanya. Now the mind goes to experience the other formations of mind that arises within the moment. Now the mind does not seem like one full sort of ball that arises or just one energy. But within this energy, you start seeing nuances of difference. Nuances. Vitaka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekagrata. The jhana factors, for example. In the Anapanasati Sutra, in observing coming from the first tetra to the second, where Vedananupasana is practiced, in the Vedananupasana, we will experience Priti and Sukha. So that will be another component of the mind that you will come closer to in realizing what formations are. That this mind is not one solid block, that this mind is conditioned by more than one condition. Actually, plenty of chaitasikas arise within this moment to make the mind what it is, further breaking the solidity of self within the mind, further breaking the solidity of self within the mind, now particularly focusing on the sankhara kanda, the aggregate of formations. And what is the aggregate of formations? In the Abhidhamma, they classify it as the 50 chetasikas apart from Vedana and Sanya. Vedana and Sanya. Now, when the consciousness or when the mind is able to see or pick at these nuances or differences, the mind gauges at what the mind truly is. When the sanya is known, the Vedana is known, the Rupa is of course known first, and then the Sankhara is known. Now the bare mind can be known. The fact that the mind conditioned with every arising, there is Chaitasikas condition in the mind, this alerts the fact of how this self is created. That this self, like a house that stands on pillars, these pillars, such as Chaitasikas, allows the mind or conditions or becomes a condition for the mind to be what it is. Upon this realization, the yogi, begins to see the five aggregates of the moment. Through the Anapanasati, you can see the five aggregates. Through the Vedananupassana, you can see the aggregates. But of course, we know through the Kayanupassana and all of the Satipatthanas, we can see the aggregates. But as we have learned, the Satipatthana starts in a particular way of cultivation. It ensues that the meditator is able to build up the foundations as they go in the practice, as they proceed along in the practice, to progress accordingly, as the Buddha discovered with his omniscient knowledge, with his own practice, the path that leads to the undying state of Nibbana. Hmm? Now, if you have any questions, anyone, may you can ask. Oh, Damsi.
Bante,
Oh.
Bante, when you said karma object, can you elaborate? Is it something to do with the raga object?
Yeah. So any object, if you remember Damsiri,
Yeah,
in the Ahara Bojjhanga Sutra that we have just done last week,
yeah,
the Ahara Bojjhanga Sutra said, what for the arising, what is the food for the arising of Kama Chanda? Hmm? The food for the arising of Kama Chanda is you take a object with unwise attention as a subha nimitta, subha
okay,
object, a
okay,
good, a pleasant object.
yeah,
That is the food for the arising of Kama Chanda.
yeah,
Right? Now, this ayoniso mansikara, right, wrong attention, in the subsequent arising of the javana, what happens? You see the arising of a lobha chitta, a greed-rooted chitta, to take that object.
okay,
When that happens, kama chanda rises within the mind.
okay, all
So,
right,
in any moment where a subha nimitta, where there is the
yeah,
karma,
yeah,
there is the lobha chittas taking that object.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm? The
yeah,
lobha chittas taking that object.
yeah. There's a slight sort of similarity to raga.
Yes,
Yeah, okay, because
absolutely.
yeah, okay,
Right. Now that lobha that arises
yeah,
is, we know, encompasses all raga, that is the lusting that
yeah,
we have for all sense object,
yeah.
for
Thank you,
all
bud.
sense
Yeah,
object.
yeah.
Hmm?
Thank you, bud.
For
The
all.
now, yeah, I have got another question.
Okay, Damsili.
When it comes to Preeti and Sukha
Hmm.
in the
Hmm.
dhyana
Hmm.
mind,
Hmm.
uh, that is it different from the Preeti in the Kayanus
Hmm. Hmm.
there's a slight difference between Preeti and Sukha in the Dhyana mind and
Hmm.
Preeti in the Kayanupassana.
Yeah. So Preeti in the Kayanupassana is connected to Vipassana. Preeti in the jhana is connected to Samatha practice.
Yeah, okay.
Preeti and Sukha are both mental concomitants or mental factors.
Yeah.
These mental factors that arise, the
Mm.
Preeti and the Sukha, when it arises of Vipassana, it arises through the sheer factors of Vipassana being cultivated there. Which
Okay.
means, what are the factors, or how do factors of Vipassana unfold? It unfolds through Samma Ditthi and Samma Sankappa, right
Okay.
view and right thought.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Okay. Yeah.
So, which is the prajna, which is prajna.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
over prajna, the Spriti Sukha experience through Vipassana is conditioned or allowed through the Prajna attribute.
Yeah, yeah,
Hence, the experience of Priti Sukha there would be particular to that condition, which
yeah.
is the Prajna element being
Right.
here.
Yeah,
In the Samadhi aspect, Samadhi is reached through the one-pointedness of mind.
yeah, yeah,
Here, the Preeti that is experienced in this sense could be more, let us say, intense in a certain way.
yeah, yeah,
Where, because of the one-pointedness of mind, the Preeti and the Sukha that is experienced, because when the one-pointed mind takes Preeti as object, takes Sukha as object,
mm,
then one can experience a saturation of Preeti and Sukha through the mind and body, respective of what kind of Preeti Sukha it might be.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm?
yeah,
Preeti Sukha it might be.
yeah, yeah,
However, when it comes to the Vipassana Preeti Sukha that we experience, as what we know even in the Anapanasati
yeah.
Sutra, in the
It,
Vipassana, if it is coming from sheer Vipassana,
yeah,
that is through knowing and seeing, there that Vipassana is different in nature. That Preeti Sukha is different in nature.
yeah,
However, as the Vipassana increases, Dhamsri cultivates further
yeah,
because of the wisdom attribute itself. Because the
yeah,
light, when the light of wisdom shines,
yeah,
the hindrances disappear. No?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hence, at some point, the Vipassana Sukha or the Vipassana Priti Sukha can even will surpass the Samadhi Priti Sukha.
yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
So much so, Dhamsari, we know in the Magga and Phala Supramandin Chittas,
Yeah,
when they say 8 or 40 Chittas,
yeah,
the 40 is with the jhana technique, the 8 is without. However,
mm,
it is understood that although the 8 is mentioned, where 89 for the sake of ease for the student,
yeah,
usually it is a 40 technique that is in the works. Why? Because of the sheer force of the Vipassana, Samadhi will come, that is known as Vipassana Samadhi,
yeah,
through which you have an Ekagrata as well there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Very clear that.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Okay. Any
Bante,
other
excuse
question?
me, Bante.
Oh,
How does
Sujata.
craving come into that then?
Sorry.
How does craving come in?
How does craving coming to?
Yes, with this explanation now, Bante,
Uh-huh.
is there an element of craving there?
Element of craving where?
Uh, while in the process of samadhi,
Okay.
we'll say, and then
Whilst in the process
suddenly,
of samadhi. Hmm.
yeah, I
Okay.
just
The
can't explain it to
nature,
you, but uh,
the nature of craving, Sujata,
craving,
the nature of craving, Sujata,
yes,
is
Bante.
accumulation.
Accumulation of,
Accumulation.
yes.
Accumulation of
Oh,
aggregate.
ha, ha, ha.
Right? So now let us say if there is craving towards the body,
Yes.
there is a certain accumulation that has to be present for it to be craving, right? Now, what is an accumulation, let us say, right? Now,
Collection, is it?
let us say a person who is sickly is
Hmm.
crave health.
Yeah.
Okay, a person who is sickly is craving health. Okay, here
Hmm.
the person wishes for the arising of health, well-being.
Hmm.
Here the person, it is not through understanding, it is through sheer desire, right? Which is for the comfort to come about, for health to come about, for all of these discomfort to go away. Hmm? So there may be craving there. Okay?
Hmm.
Be craving there. Now
But
let's say There may be craving there.
mm,
Now, when a person is on the path, the practice is for the getting rid of,
mm,
not accumulation, getting
uh-huh,
for the
mm,
non-coming, for the non-arising, to not produce further condition. There, because of that nature of contemplation, because there is no further accumulation that is desired for, or a change of the circumstance through craving or desire,
yeah,
right? Because of that, the
um,
natures, that the conditions necessary for craving to arise is not present.
mm,
When it is a three-rooted mind, Sujata, there,
yes, Bhante.
because of the first attribute, which is renunciation, alobha,
Yeah.
renunciation, letting go, there is no craving.
Mm-hmm.
There is no craving. However, whilst there may be no craving at this point, right? Now, let us say you have a beautiful session of meditation.
Yeah.
Very very thought provoking, let us say, very inspiring, very powerful, all of these things. And you maneuver the mind with such dutiful charisma, spirited by, what the right practice of Vipassana is. And afterwards, when you get up from the meditation, um,
Mm,
you think to yourself, you conduct your meditation very well. But let
mhm,
us say after you get up from your meditation, you think to yourself, oh, what a wonderful session of meditation I've had.
yeah.
Now I'm far better
Mm,
before, in that
mm,
sense.
mm,
Now what happens, right? Now what has happened in that sense? Now this is quite normal, right?
yeah.
This is in line with one's own wisdom and one's own faculties and all of this. But it is also good to know that there, the meditation is now put on to, if you are connecting it with yourself.
Mm,
Now I can meditate like this. So there, you're seeing the meditation as a component of yourself there.
mm,
The only way that we get rid of this is by letting go, of course, with practice, knowing and seeing, subsequently, you know, the path and all that we do will culminate in this result.
mm,
However, we make the efforts to be able to experience this without attributing it to self, or without seeing this as a part of self, or self as a part of this, or in any way.
mm,
Because then we learn, it's like when a bucket has a bottom,
mm,
right? You can fill things into it. If the
mm,
bucket doesn't have a bottom, then whatever you
mhm,
throw into it, it doesn't get accumulated.
yeah. Mhm,
Now, one might be very smart to now challenge that example and say,
yeah.
Bante, where does that, whatever you're putting onto the bucket fall? Right?
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. It's an obvious question
But
anyway.
however, may fall too, because there is no bottom, because there is no self, wherever that object arises, whatever that attribute might be, it ceases.
I
There
see.
is
See.
no
Mm, mhm, mhm.
accumulation. When there is
Exactly.
no accumulation, you learn through knowing and seeing for yourself, you learn. In a state
Mhm.
where there is no accumulation, I am at a state of peace. In a
Yes.
state where there is no flux, my mind is at a state of tranquility, with samadhi, with one pointedness.
Mm,
The more that I am able to connect to this one pointedness, or to be within this nature, the faculties, the happiness that is experienced, my dependency upon the aggregates or other material or mental emotions or attributes, the dependence starts to cease.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
becomes an island onto oneself
Mhm.
in this practice, because then one realizes all that I need in this moment is the ability of my mind to focus, to be with the object, to contemplate, where now the Dhamma becomes, like the Buddha says, so mam pasati o dhammam pasati.
Yes.
Sees me, sees the Dhamma. One who sees the Dhamma sees me, because that is all
Mm,
that is unfolding even within the Tathagata. Even within the Tathagata. So all of that which we are going through in our own personal lives, these are not specifically happening to you. These are the conditions that have been created along this samsara, in this path of life, that we have to go through because the craving has connected those energies to this life force.
Yes,
When we go through those conditions, those particular conditions, just as, for example, water would experience the conditions that can condition water. Water does not experience the conditions that cannot condition it. For example, the mind. In such a way, the yogi, the meditator, progresses in the path. So, with that said, everyone,
Sadhu, sadhu,
I hope that today's session is inspiring for
Can
all
I
of
kindly
you.
ask a small question, please, Bante?
හිරන්ති මේ අපේ වෙලාව දැන් ඉවර වෙන්න ළඟයි ඒත් කියන්න හිරන්ති.
මොකද බන්ති කිව්වා නේද ප්‍රීතියෙන් සුඛ කියලා. ඒකේ සුඛ ප්‍රීතිය එක comes under the pakirna occasionals. But where does the සුඛ comes බන්තේ? ප්‍රීතිය එක එනවා. ප්‍රීතිය එක එනවා under the occasionals which is the pakirna.
Yes.
එතකොට සුඛ එක එන්නේ කොහෙද mental factors වල?
සුඛ mental factors වල සුඛ කොයිද එන්නේ?
Week time, I have got the charge in front even. You know,
Okay.
sure.
Where does sukha come? Anyone who can answer the question?
Sukha.
Yeah. In the prakirnaka, vitaka, vichara, adimukha, virya, priti, chanda. Sukha කොයිද තියෙන්නේ? Cool.
මං හිතුවා මම right. I was a bit hesitant to ask as well.
No. We have discussed Chandra. දන්නවද සුඛ තියෙන්නේ කියලා?
සුඛ කියන්නේ සැප.
චාට් එකෙත් නෑ වන්ති.
Sukha is not
from mind නේ සරණස්.
කොයිද මනසේ?
mind ප්‍රඥාව knowledge එකත් එක්කද සුඛ.
හිත සන්තෝෂ වෙනකොට.
බාන්තේ ප්‍රීති කියන්නේ මයින්ඩ් එක, සුඛ කියන්නේ කාය.
ඔතට ඒක අපි කොහොමද දකින්නේ?
මනෝද්වාර කාය මනෝද්වාර නේ සරණස්.
සුඛ තියෙන්නේ කය හරහා. සුඛ කොයිද හටගන්නේ?
හිතේ.
heart එකේ නේ.
එය
within you.
So, Preeti, when we know Sukha, for example, Sukha, Dukkha, Upekka. If we go on the detailed Vedana, there is Sukha, Somanassa, Dukkha, Domanassa, Upekka. නේද? ඔතකොට දැන් මේ මම අපි හැවුව සෝමනස්සේ කොයිද චෛතසිකවල තුල තියෙන්නේ? Somanassa.
That is Preeti, no?
Somanassa. Somanassa is Preeti.
Yes.
Right? Because it is Somanassa is connected to the mind. Sukhaya hataganne, usually Sukha arises connected, not usually, all times, Sukha arises connected with the physicality.
Body.
Right? Hence, Sukha, Kaya, Sukha is found within the body as a Vedana. As a Vedana. Remember, Vedana is of three types. Sukha or Somanassa Sukha, Domanassa Dukkha, Upekka. Hence, the Sukha arises as a Vedana as Sukha, Dukkha, Upekka. In those parts, Right? Now, if we say when sukha sahagata kaya vinyana මතකයි නේද? සුඛ සහගත කාය විඤ්ඤාණයක් තියෙනවද? නෑ. සුඛ සහගත සම්තිරණ. සුඛ සහගත සම්තිරණ. What are the attributes that are found in sukha sahagata santirana? We have the 7 sabbajita sadharanas. We have initial application, sustained application, adimokha decision, vitakka vichara, adimokha, and preeti. And preeti. Okay. See, now sukha sagata kaya vinyana, when it comes on from the side of the mind, the preeti is present. The sukha that we attribute towards that is also seen in the chaitasikas as that preeti. But Vedana, as a Vedana, when the Vedana arises, Vedana connects that to Sukha. Because after Vedana, Sanya. The Sanya, when the Vedana arises, it's Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, or Upekka. Or Upekka Vedana. Okay? All right.
Okay.
So, enang okkomalata for everyone, much blessings. Wishing you all the very best in continue with your practice. And I will see you tomorrow for the Abhidhamma class. Okkomalata Theruvan Saranai.
Thank you.
Thank you very